Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Illusion Art for the Beginners. Now I've picked this piece for a beginner sort of test panel today because I think it's going to be really good to practice on. This piece will get to show you how to shade a 3D object and make something look realistic and pop off the panel. Today's project as well will also teach you how to hold shields. Simple ones. These are just L brackets, basically L shapes in cardboard. Cut these out. This was actually a picture frame insert and I just chopped it up for the L shapes because we've got like a checkerboard 3D ball that's going to pop out the center of this picture. So I thought the L shapes will be great for going around doing the checkers like that. So this is going to get to teach you how to hold a shield and the airbrush at the same time, because it can be quite fiddly trying to hold something and airbrush and sort of float with one arm, because I always say bring your other hand up as a beginner to steady your brush, and you can do that when you're working. You can bring your other hand up and steady yourself, but it's going to be really good practice for you guys to start holding shields. We've got some L shapes, what I just showed you, and we've got a French curve. These are nice and cheap to pick up. I'll leave a link in the description to some French curves if you want to pick some of them up, but you can make these shapes yourself out of cardboard and chop them up. So a really good one to practice on for shading, holding shields. The brush we're going to use today is a beginner's brush as well, and I highly recommend the new Harder & Steenbeck Ultra 2024. I'll give you a little talk about the brush and why I think it's brilliant for a beginner. Now, when you're a beginner looking for a brush on the market, there is so many out there and it's really sort of hard for you to think, oh, what needle and nozzle setup do I need? Some people just jump straight onto like 0.2s and small needle setups, and they struggle because they're not used to mixing their paints as a beginner. The reason why I recommend the Ultra is it's a 0.45. So thicker bodied paints as a beginner, because you don't really know how to mix them up, you will get along with it a lot easier. It'll be a lot more forgiving with the 0.45. Also with this brush, you've got a nice wide trigger top. So you can place your finger to the top and find your comfortable spot when you work. You've got a nice tension in this spring. A lot of the sort of detail brushes on the 02s, they've got very soft springs, and I think for a beginner, you don't need a soft spring. You work up to a detail brush. You want that feedback and control. You want to feel the resistance when you pull back. It's going to sort of want to bring your finger forward. The other bonus with this brush, it will teach you the double action movement on your trigger, and that is something you need to learn, is the trigger movement. So when you do progress and you buy your next brush, you move on to your next brush, which is more detail, you know how that trigger works, going down for air and back for paint. So this trigger, you can't just pull back on this trigger. You have to press down and then it releases, and then you can start to pull back. So it's teaching you the movement of the double action where you press down and then go back. Behind the trigger on these brushes as well are sleeve settings. So there's a little collar here that you move and it clicks into place, so you can have full trigger, so you can press down and go all the way back. You can then go to prime, and that's a primer setting, so you can pull back so far, and then you've got base, and then you've got 1, 2 and 3. These settings will give you a selection of paint flow between each setting. So we're going to use these settings on this piece of artwork today. I'm going to put you in time lapses on this, and then I'll do short time lapses, stop, talk you through. I'll put the sleeve settings to the side of the screen, so where you see me working, we've got a checkerboard to put down, so it'll be one setting to drop the blacks in, then we're going to go for a setting to drop the shading in, and then we're going to go for a setting to drop the highlights in. So I'll break this down as much as I can for you. So that's the brush. Running pressures, if you're worried about what pressure do I run my brush at as a beginner, set yourself a ballpark of 25 psi. That's my sort of go-to pressure with the paints. I'll show you the paint mixes in a minute, but 25 psi is a good starting point to go from, and then you can bring your pressure down slightly when you want to go up closer. So always think 25, and then when you start to move in, just start to bring your pressure down. You don't want that real fierce pressure when you're going up close, because you can blow your paint out. So just remember, if you're going up close, start to dial your pressure in. Paints. We're using 3 paints today. We're using a carbon black by Golden Highflow Acrylics. We're going to be using a shading grey transparent. This will be for the shading around the bottom of the sphere there. This will give you the look. Transparent gives you the look of where you can see through it. I always say transparent is like when you look at a church stained glass window and you can see through, you can see the light through it. That's how a transparent paint works. It's not an opaque colour that blacks out. So if we do the black, you wouldn't see the white underneath. If we did the transparent over that, you could still see that white underneath. So that's transparent paint. We've also got a white opaque, so we're going to be using that to drop some of the highlights in. So that's the paint. Mixing it, if you've got golden, I find the best mixing ratio for golden is 1:1 or 2:1. So 2 drops of water to 1 drop of paint, or 1:1 is 1 drop of paint, 1 drop of water. Distilled water is really nice to use, and you can use tap water. It's not a problem. So they're the bits. Cleaning your brush. Quick one on cleaning. The Ultra is probably one of the easiest brushes to clean, it really is. You can get yourself the airbrush pots where you push the brush in and blast through. You'll find with the Ultra as well, if you set this to full trigger when you want to blast through your paints, these triggers go further back. So you can dump the paint out a lot quicker. It brings the needle further back, which opens up the hole in the nozzle a lot more, and you can blast through your paints. Cleaning these, nice and simple. Empty your paint into your pot. If you've got a lot of paint left over, pour it back into your bottle. Then get some water, drop some water in, and I usually drop water in, blast through. Drop some more water in, blast through. Then get a piece of kitchen towel, put it on your pinky or one of your fingers like that, and just push it, and then spin round the cup. Clean the excess out of the cup. If you start to get a build up on these nozzles at the front, little artist brush, little cleaning brush like that, and then just point it in the holes of the Ultra at the front, and these will guide the bristles down to the needle and just clean the needle. You can use water. You can just literally dip the front end of the brush in a little bit of water and then just push through with the bristles of the brush, and that will clean your needle. So nice and simple to clean. Airbrush hanger, I recommend one of the H&S ones. These are really nice, guys, because the brushes sit and lock into the front like that. Tabletop mount with rubber feet so it don't go anywhere. And these are designed for the H&S brushes. They just work really well. I'll leave a link in the description to all the bits that we're using today. So I'll move you in closer. The first colour we're going to start off with is carbon black, and we're going to be using the shields and going round. Sleeve setting, you'll see it on the screen, but I'll tell you the one we're going to use now. We're going to use the base coat setting, and this will give you a trigger movement and paint flow on the base coat setting. So enjoy the video, and I'll see you after the time lapse, and we'll talk a little bit more. See you in a bit. Right guys, a little pause. Now you've seen in the time lapse, you've seen the sleeve setting that we're on, that popped up inside of the screen. You are going to get a little bit of blowout as a beginner. I've got a little bit of blowout here and there. You will get it because you're holding the shield and you're working around. Now, if you really wanted to make this image a lot tighter when you progress and you wanted to do it again, I would use application tape. Put some application tape down, chop all the segments out, and then you can pull the individual pieces out and you'll get this really, really crisp. But this is just a good way of practicing with shields. So you see now I went round the squares. When you put these up, to try and keep minimal blowout, aim your paint sort of into the corner like this and work that way. Same when you work around here, work into the corner and blow your air this way towards the shield instead of away from the shield, and you'll get a lot less blowout. So we use the L shapes and we've used the French curve on some of these pieces round here. So just holding it up and then spraying against the edge, and that'll give you your nice sharp edges. The next piece we're going to do is work in the checkers on the centre, on the ball in the middle. We'll work the blacks in there and then we'll move on to the next paint. So we're going to do the same setting, work around these, fill these ones in, and then we'll change the paint over and we'll move into a shading grey, and then we'll just start to shade this ball up and give it that 3D look on the shading. See you in the next time lapse. Right guys, a little pause. We've got the centerpieces in and now we're going to move on to the shading. So we're going to move on to the shading grey transparent, and we're going to do some drop shadows round here. Going to shade this out and then do a drop shadow that comes around the bottom here. Then we'll switch the paint up, blast it through again, put some white in, and then we'll do some white highlights around the top, and just to make that top piece pop out and put the shadows in at the bottom. So getting to that piece, you're using the shields. Now you see me working around with the French curve, just hold the French curve on and then lightly go in with your paint. I was using like the base coat setting. On this I'm going to use a minimal paint on this one and just puff a little bit in. So I'm going to try level 3. I may change it up, but I'll put it in the side of the screen. I've got the brush cleaned out, just gave it a couple of blast throughs with water, and then got a bit of kitchen towel and just wiped the excess that was in the cup, so nice and easy. If you're getting a clog near the front after doing this, get your artist brush, drop some water in, hold it to the side, and I just literally blast the water through and then just poked the artist brush, and that directs down to the needle and it cleaned the needle up nice and easy. I'm going to go back in on the test panel, just try the paint, 25 psi. I may drop it down, but I'll pop that in the screen. So I'll see you in the next time lapse. There you go guys, we are all done, and there you go, it makes it look like it's popping out the screen. So you see, nice and simple one. Just take your time with the shields, work all your sort of cubes in first, then you can do your drop shadows underneath to give it that sort of dome effect coming round on the ball, and then just popped a little highlight in the top because we've got the light source coming down here. Little bit of white popped out the top, and you've got your illusion, your sort of 3D. Makes it look like it's popping out the screen. We've used the Harder and Steenbeck Ultra. I dropped the settings to the side of the screen, so nice and easy. We ran 25 psi continuous all the way through. I didn't drop the pressure. Thin the paints 1:1, and we've got the test panel at the side, so always check your paint before you commit. Get the flow right. You'll hear the brush. If your paint's grainy at 25 psi, you'll hear it sound grainy. And then when you spray, you'll basically get it to spray and sound like when you've got sort of water in it. You get that nice, you'll aim for that sort of sound. If your paint was grainy, it would come out sort of gritty noise, it'd be a lot louder. But that, you want that nice, smooth sound, like when you're spraying sort of water. Don't thin your paint down to water consistency, get it to semi-skimmed milk, and you'll get this sort of sound with your paint, and you'll be flowing, it'll be good to go. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and learned something along the way. Nice little test panel for you guys, and it gets you practicing your shading and things like that, and making things look more sort of pop out the panel. So thanks for watching. I'll leave a link in the description to the new Ultra. Also the stand, if you want to get a stand for your Ultra. Paints I'll leave a link in the description for as well. So thanks again guys. See you in the next one.